Hi, I'm David and welcome to Leisure Bit, and today we're going to be fitting this Victron power supply unit, which is a 30 amp one and it's lithium compatible as part of the lithium install, and removing the old Elddis power supply, which is a 20 amp 13.8 volt supply, which isn't fully lithium compatible. So we get a bit more power out of the Victron one and it's lithium compatible. You can access it via Bluetooth and it just makes it easier. Anyway, let's get on with the job. So before we get started, we've just got a little bit of prep work to do, because this comes with a plug as standard on it. And we've actually got I call it a kettle connector, but it's an IEC connector. I've popped a link in the description of where you can pick those up. You can pick them up in lots of places. I got a pack of 2. It was about £7 for a male and a female one. I'm going to use the male one in this case. And what I've done is I've got about 40 centimetres of cable left, because I didn't want to leave too much, but wanted enough so that you could lift it out if you need to get access to it. And what we've done here is we've connected the neutral to this pin, which is the blue wire, the earth to the pin at the top, the longer pin, and the live, which is the brown wire, to the connection on the right. We also need to make sure that the cord grip screws in right, and we've just got the wires roughly the right length to go in there, and just make sure none of the strands of wires are touching across there. And then we can just pop this back together. For the entire of this job, you just need a small posi drive screwdriver, because that allows you to fit the plug and get into take things out. The only one you need a slightly bigger one for is just to take the wooden cover off, which we'll get onto now. So next thing we need to do is actually get into the area we're going to work in, take the old power supply out. Here's the one I prepared earlier, and which comes out really easily. You'll see it in a moment, but basically it just slides up. You need to disconnect the cable that's connected in here, and which is the feed basically through into the Elddis charging system, and then this is the connection to the mains. Just before we move on to that, make sure you've got all of the power disconnected if you're thinking of doing this kind of job, and if you don't feel confident and competent with it, please get an electrician to do the work for you, because we're dealing with mains electricity and also fairly high current DC electrics here, so we just need to make sure we do it competently and correctly. But hopefully this gives you an idea on how I've gone about it, but not kind of encouraging you to do the same thing. It's just to give you a bit of an idea of what I've done with the van, as it might inspire you to do things with your van. And for reference, we're working on an Elddis CV20 campervan here, so this is relevant to that. It's a similar setup for all of the Elddis and Compass CV range of vans, but it's specifically the 20 series, you know, whether that be Elddis or Compass that we're working with. So just be careful as we go through. So say first job is just make sure you've got this connector, which is the kettle type connector. It's the male one, the one with the pins rather than the sockets, which is the female one. And then we are ready to connect up and get going. Also, before we start, just in terms of the parts you need for this, so there's obviously this which is the 30 amp 1 output. I went for there. You can get a 3 output version, and the price range seems to be between about 150 and £200, and I think a reasonably good price, about 160, which is what I got it there for. But see if you can get a better bargain. Let me know if you get a better deal. And that then just plugs into the existing connections. What I'm trying to do wherever possible, as you've probably seen, is preserve the original installation so I can put things back later if I so desire, because some things work out, some things don't, and at some point in the probably quite distant future, might want to sell the van on, and I want the ability to put things back. So anything I've taken out, such as this, I'm just putting in safe storage. The other point as well, just before proceeding, you should actually be aware of what impact it might have on your kind of campervan side warranty by doing any modifications to this. So make sure you're comfortable with that before carrying out any modifications to your van. Anyhow, let's get on with the job. So I said this is the Elddis CV20, and the works are under here, which is there's a little flap on the cupboard here, which we can drop down to get access to things, but we actually need a bit more room to get in. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove the back cushions and the base cushion, and then we're going to remove, we'll just take the screws out of that and just show you how to do that now. So to remove this, we simply take out 1, 2, 3, 4 screws. And then let's take this off and move it out the way, and then we can now get in here. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the back cover off the power supply unit. So what we're going to do now, after we've removed the cushions and the box, is just take the 2 screws out of here, like so, and just put those safely to one side so we don't lose them. And now we can remove this box. I'm just taking the screws out there, showed you how to do that, and that just lifts off, and put that there for safekeeping. And just make sure you don't lose the screws as you go, it's just held in by 2 screws. Next, we're going to remove the old power supply, which just disconnect the cable and slides out here. So once we've removed the top, we can remove the power supply like so, and then we disconnect this connector here, pulled out this connector here, which was connected into there. So we've got that, and we'll put that to one side so we can put it in safe storage. And now we're going to install the new charger in its place. Worth noting as well, I'm actually, because you've probably clicked that we've taken a 20 amp power supply out, and we're actually replacing it with a 30 amp one. Now, it wouldn't be safe to just connect that directly into the Elddis electrics. And as you see, I've just put a little cap on there, because whilst the plugs recess slightly, just wanted to make sure nothing ended up poking into it in the back and causing a short circuit. But that's just probably me being extra safety cautious. So what we're going to do now is we're going to fit this in, which you'll see. And I've actually used a couple of bits of Velcro on the back to stick it on, just to stop it wobbling around at the back, because it doesn't quite, it's just slightly, you'll see there, it's just slightly shorter where it clips in, but it fits pretty well in there, and it's got the ventilation at either side and at the top just to keep it cool, because when running at full power you do generate a little bit of heat with these. Anyway, let's get that installed now. So we're going to plug that into the receptacle connector, which was connected into there, and then we're going to, that then runs the power through. And just a reminder, make sure you've got your van completely disconnected from the mains, and it makes sense to cut the power off or isolate the specific circuits before doing any work such as this, which I've done. So let's get cracking. So we've connected the power cable in there, just plugs straight in with the one we fitted to the end of there. And now what we're going to do is I've already run, there's the positive and the negative, and if you watch the previous video you'll also notice there's a feed into the battery maintainer from here. So we're going to connect those cables up now. To get access to the where the cables go in, this just pulls back and lifts off, and you can see there, just get down, the positives on that side and the negatives here. So what we'll do now is we'll just connect those wires in, and just make sure they're nice and tight and we haven't got any whiskers of wire crossing across. You'll notice here as well there's actually a fuse in there, which is a 40 amp fuse, which is fitted off the charger. And at the other end of the cable here, so we've got 10 amp breakers which connect up into the battery maintainer, and at the other end of the line we've got a 40 amp breaker. And we'll cover that next time, because to show you how it all connects in and how I've got it wired into the lithium battery. But so this and the black cable feed back towards the lithium battery. And again, the reason I've done that is because the current setup is only really set up for 20 amps, not 30 amps. So I've run directly back to the battery for safety. So there we go. So we've connected the black wires, or the negative, to the negative, and the red wires, or the positive, to the positive. Be very careful to make sure you connect them the right way around, otherwise you could cause damage to components, or worse still, even a fire. And the age-old tip, and I always like this phrase, it sounds a bit scary, but common sense, you know, whether it be mains or DC, loose wires cause fires. So just make sure everything's nice and tight, and just give the cables a quick pull just to make sure nothing's coming out, and that you've got no whiskers stranding between the positive and negative, and nothing's going to work loose when you're out on the road. So I'm happy enough with that. So we can pop the cover back on now, which just pushes down there and then clips across like so, and then we can get it installed back in. What I'm going to do, it's just a little bit fiddly here because you've got to feed the, so we'll tuck this mains cable back under there. If it's easy, you can remove the back, so we don't want loads of cable hanging around and being in the way. So we'll get that tucked out the way so it's not trapped in. And we'll also then just make sure those cables fall through neatly. I've put a little bit of padding there, a little bit of padding there, and then I've got the Velcro attached here for it to stick to, and I'm actually tucking it behind these clips at the front to make sure it's nice and solidly in. And what I've actually made is a little cap out of a plug without the connections in, and we're just going to plug that into there like so, and just put a bit of hot melt glue in the end. It just keeps that connection safe then, so nothing's going to touch onto it or anything like that. Then we can just put that out the way. So there we go, that's nicely in place now and nice and solid, so it's not going to move around. So what we'll do now is just quickly check it works, and the lights come on when we power it up, and if we're happy with that, we will then crack on and put the cover back on. So to put the cover back on, similar to taking off, we just need to make sure it's tucked in the little grooves at the back and that we've got those clear. If you do use a bit of padding, just make sure it's heat and fire retardant, of course, just to make sure we don't create an issue. And now let's bob the screws back in. So there we go, all screwed back together, and I gave it a quick check, everything was powering up fine, so I think we've got everything plugged in well there, and we can go and switch the power back on through now. So we can now put the wooden slats back on and screw them back down with the 4 screw holes you can see there, and then we can pop the cushion back on top. Right, so now that we've completed installation and removed the old power supply and replaced it with the new power supply, which comes with a handy little instruction book as well, just with a little bit more information in. Now what we can do now is have a quick look at the app. So in the app, let's connect up now, and we'll choose the charger, which is the one we're interested in. That also confirms everything's working as well. So what we're going to do now is just change the current from 15 amp to 30 amps. And you can see there, it's now 29 odd amps flowing through there. 15 amps is quite handy if you want it on overnight, because you do get a little bit of a buzz and you can hear a little bit of fan noise when it warms up, but when you turn the power down it doesn't run as warm, so handy if you want silence overnight on that. So, and you can see a little bit there on the status and the history and that sort of thing as well. So that's the app that comes with it, and we'll cover off in a future video how we connect all the different things, the solar controller, the charger and the shunt together, so that we can use the information to get the best possible outcome with that, but we'll cover that off in a future video. So there we go, that's it installed. Not a massively complex job, but obviously just a little bit of detail there to work through in terms of changing the plug on it, making sure you've got it connected through. And in the next video, which is the exciting bit, when we're getting onto the battery and how I've kind of connected that up and breakers and things like that, I'll just follow on and show you where I routed the wire into the battery. But that positive and negative actually run back to the leisure battery directly, again for the reason that the Elddis unit's designed for a 20 amp charger, not a 30 amp charger, so we don't want to be blowing fuses or overloading anything and causing an issue there. So there we go, that's it done, and I'll look forward to catching you on the next episode where we're on to the lithium battery. See you next week. Thank you for watching. I hope you found it useful. Really appreciate any feedback or thoughts or comments. Would you have done anything differently? Is there anything in the way you think I've done it that you think, oh crikey, don't do it that way? Really appreciate, drop them in the comments and give us a shout. Thanks again, and I'll catch you next week. Bye.